everybody, it's Obley here. Today I wanted to talk about Empower Rune Weapon, the brand new, kind of not brand new, spell that was added with the new Frost Decay rework. I just wanted to go over some of the key important things about this spell that I feel like you guys should know, and I think this alone deserves just a video of its own. So without further ado, let's hop right into that now. So, Empower used to be this spell that would just give you a bunch of haste and gradually return runes back to you. Also, would give you some runic power too. So, it's really helpful for Breath of Sinjagota, but now it's been completely reworked. So, now the spell gives you a killing machine proc on demand, as well as 40 runic power, and then inside your pillar windows, it makes that killing machine free. Okay, so what do you do now in modern day WoW with the way that Empower Rune Weapon is? So, for me, it breaks down into two different ways. You can play it in a conservative manner, where you basically just press this button if you can't press anything else. So you always want to try and press Frost Strike and dump some runic power. Your rhymes, obviously rhyme is more priority because you don't want to double proc rhyme by spending runic power. So you always want to try and exhaust yourself of all the other options you possibly could do before pressing Empower Rune Weapon if you are not at 2 stacks. Now, speaking of rhyme reduces the cooldown of Empower Rune Weapon via Frostbound Will. So every time you consume a rhyme proc, Empower Rune Weapon regains 6 seconds of its cooldown, which means you can have this button quite fast, which means instead of playing in a conservative manner, you can actually play it in a bit more of an aggressive manner instead. So this is because you're kind of banking on the fact that you're going to have a lot of rhyme procs, you're going to be getting this back quite quickly, which means that you can use Empower Rune Weapon now as more of an enabling spell to get into the next phase of doing some DPS. For example, maybe you're at 4 stacks of Bone Grinder, you have a Empower Weapon charge, but you do have some runic power you could spend first. It might be a better idea for you to do Empower Rune Weapon and then consume the killing machine so that you proc that 5 stack of Bone Grinder. So now you're doing 20% more damage with those Frost Strikes. Because in your pillar window things are a little bit different, where Empower Rune Weapon will make consuming the next killing machine free. You see no runes left there. That means that you can use this in a point where if you're in a pinch where in your cooldowns you haven't pulled correctly, you can't cast anything because you've done too many casts beforehand. I would argue that using Empower Rune Weapon to enable yourself to start a chain reaction where you start actually doing damage in your pillar window is something to look out for as well. You might overcap one killing machine, but you're not even going to spend that killing machine if you don't actually cast Empower Rune Weapon just as a whole. Otherwise, you're just going to sit there like a lemon for about 4 seconds waiting for your runes to recharge when you could have just overcapped a killing machine with Empower Rune Weapon and just carried on going, actually made use of your cooldown window. Going off from this as well, in your pillar window, if you actually finish your window, so let's wait 10 seconds for that. When you cast Empower Rune Weapon, the free element of Empower Rune Weapon does carry over. So we'll cast it now, keeping the killing machine ready in the bank. Pillar of Frost has finished. Now let's spend it. Well, it was free. So this means that if in the end of your pillar windows, if you don't have any killing machine charges, it is in your best interest to get these spent as soon as possible. So if you have like 1 second of pillar left, you're choosing between what global to press, doing Empower Rune Weapon so that you can still do your killing machine outside of it and it be buffed is a very good thing as well. You wouldn't really want to use Empower Rune Weapon to double up your stacks into like a 2-stack killing machine, because the damage from that is only about 10% more damage, a little bit less than that. The actual multiplier is 25% increased critical strike damage, but that doesn't directly correlate to 25% increased damage as a whole. In reality, 2 stacks of killing machine does, have a look, at 1.6 mil. Let's see if we can get a lucky, fuck it, let's just do that. About 1.6 mil. I mean, I did cast Reaper's Mark, which obviously is going to make the target take a little bit more extra damage, but you kind of understand what I mean. Without that, it would be something like 1.4, 1.5. It's not a tremendous amount of damage less. There's almost no scenarios where you want to use Empower to double up your killing machine procs anymore, but there is one. It's your burst. So as soon as you're bursting, especially with Breath, seeing as Breath gives you a charge back, if you can spend all 3 of your Empower Rune Weapon charges, you can give yourself 3 additional stacks towards your 5-stack Bone Grinder when you do burst. With Deathbringer, you get 2 additional killing machines, so 1 from applying Reaper's Mark and then 1 from our 2 set spending the Exterminate. That gives you 5, which means using your Empower Rune Weapons there to double those up guarantees a 5-stack. So if you go to here, Empower Rune Weapon, spend, and then Breath, Empower, spend, Empower, spend. So that was actually 6 total killing machine casts because I got a lucky auto proc. But because of that, I'm always getting this 5-stack that I need in order to make sure that Bone Grind, Reaper's Mark and Exterminate are all buffed by 20%. So that's the best case scenario. That's the only time you'd ever use Empower Rune Weapon to make it 2 stacks rather than just giving yourself a fresh new instance of killing machine. Fortunately, with Rider, you just kind of have to luck it out. So you just have to hope that your auto attack crits crit at the right time, and then you can double them up with the Empowering Weapon and get an early Bone Grinder, because realistically, you do want to get an early one. But yeah, with Rider, it's a lot less in your control. Now, we're obviously talking about just the initial burst here when you first pull a boss, but if you're midway through the fight and you're going to be doing another breath window soon, you want to bank some Bone Grinder procs so that you can save cast of Empowering Weapon, because essentially Empowering Weapon just makes up for the stacks that you're missing. So if you start a cast or start a burst window with 4 stacks of Bone Grinder, you can save almost all the Empowering Weapon charge. You could have all 2 of these spent first, because you know you'd get one for certain off of the application of breath, and then getting this and then spending it. So think of Empowering Weapon when you're setting up for your next burst halfway through boss fights as just instances of Bone Grinder. That's the way that I look at it. If I have loads of Bone Grinder stacks already, I don't need as many Empowering Weapons, which means I can either spend them earlier if I'm missing some damage, or I can save them for my burst window and do some more valuable globals. You're probably going to be doing the latter more often. Another trick I like to use is when I'm in a Bone Grinder window and I know I get a Empowering Weapon charge, I know that Obliterate without a Killing Machine does not do frost damage. So using Empowering Weapon to empower it will ensure that that Killing Machine is buffed by the 20% frost damage. Sometimes I also like to use Empowering Weapon as a way of just making sure my Bone Grinder stacks don't fall off. So if I'm running to the pack, doing it from range, and so I can instantly spend the Killing Machine as soon as I get there, rather than having to get there and do it all. It just means that I can keep this buff rolling, and it's especially prevalent if you have like a 4 stack. Then it's super important, because it's going to take you ages, maybe not ages, but it's going to take you a long time to get that 4 stack back again. So having a Empowering Weapon there to keep it going, boom, and proc it, is really nice. I must tell you as well, the soul that it sucks is the Killing Machine. So what I mean by that is, look here. That soul that it sucks into you, that is when you get your buff. If you fight a target that is very large, like Dementius or like Fractalus, you won't get that until it reaches you. And that can take a long time. So the travel time from the back of the target's hitbox to you will influence when you get your Killing Machine proc. So you have to bear this in mind on fights like Fractalus, and most certainly bear this in mind on fights like Dementius. So because of that, I end up always just blowing up the ads first. I always just go on those, because I can get my Killing Machines very, very quickly from them instead, and it doesn't interrupt my flow or my burst window. So why play conservative? Why play aggressive? Well, conservative, this is the time where you're like saving for no resources, or if you're pooling for cooldowns. You're basically saving yourself for the future, where if you don't have any resources, you have this Empower spell. So it might not be the most damaging part of the fight, where the most valuable global that you're going to gain from pressing Empowering Weapon at these moments, but it will prevent you from just doing nothing in some moments, or doing a naked Obliterate, which for some people that's very good. I mean, realistically, that is a pretty good way to play, and anybody that's new, I would suggest to play this way. But then once you become a bit more advanced, playing in the more aggressive play style, where you're doing that sort of like last global in Bone Grinder type shit, that bit, playing like that, will pay off if luck is on your side. So if you never go through these moments where you need to hold Empowering Weapon for these specific times where you need to save yourself, then having Empowering Weapon being used for more damaging, more valuable globals will pay off. But obviously you are just keeping your life, your DPS, your log in the hands of RNG gods. Now we know that Killing Machine adds a lot of damage to Obliterate. We're looking at about 1 million damage, just going from a regular hit to a Killing Machine hit. We can see here regular crit for 480k, then the Killing Machine 1.7. We had a couple of buffs going as well, but you can roughly say about 1 million. It's even more prevalent with Frost Scythe. If we look here, Frost Scythe damage, everything is almost 800k, looking at about, let's say 750 just for normal sake, and then you've got 166k without it, because it didn't crit, and if it did crit, it would just be about 300k. So if we do the maths, 5 targets there, you do about 3.5 mil total when it's a Killing Machine, whereas if it's just a 130k hit, do the maths on that, 650k. So you're gaining like 3 million. You're gaining so much more just by making sure that your AoE has a Killing Machine as well, and that's why the value of crit goes up and up and up. Obviously, mastery very important as well, but as we're talking about Empowering Weapon, when you're playing in AoE, I would say it's in your best interest to be a little bit more conservative in AoE, in the form of making sure that you never have to cast Frost Scythe without a Killing Machine, because the damage is just amplified so much from having way more targets. A very good example of this would be something like Ford Weaver Araz. If you know that the ads are about to spawn on Ford Weaver, you know for certain that if you save your Empowering Weapon, this ability, instead of gaining you 1 mil damage on your next global, you will be able to use it with Frost Scythe, and now Frost Scythe will gain 3 mil damage instead. So it's definitely worth saving for AoE phases too. Okay guys, so that has been my video on Empowering Weapon and how to use it effectively, giving you a bit of an insight on what I'm thinking when I use my Empowering Weapon, and maybe you learned something new. That is the end goal at the end of the day, is these short videos you can quickly watch and get a new insight into the game, because you know the last time I did a video like this, I said it was going to be short and it was half an hour long. So this time I'm going to stick to my word, short video. But thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in my UI or in coaching, just hit me up on Discord, and I have a week aura for Empowering Weapon as well. So if you're interested in an Empower Rune Weapon helper week aura that glows the button whenever a good scenario comes along, that will be in the description too. So thank you very much guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Don't forget to like and then subscribe if you want to keep up to date with more DK stuff. But I'll see you soon. Bye bye.